Every empire that has ever struck America on its own soil has paid a price far greater than the blow they delivered. Not once. Not twice. 8 times across 2 centuries, Britain, Germany, Japan, Mexico, and Al-Qaeda all attacked the United States directly. And every single one of them ended up worse off for it. But here is what most people get wrong about this story. It was never about American invincibility. America was humiliated in 1814. Caught completely off guard in 1941. Shaken to its core in 2001. The United States has bled. It has burned. Its capital has been set on fire. And yet, every power that pulled the trigger on American soil eventually found itself on the wrong side of history. This is not a story about a nation that cannot be hurt. It is a story about what happens next. And what happens next is always the same. Imagine the year is 1814. The world's most powerful empire, fresh from crushing Napoleon, turns its full fury toward a young, divided America. They believe one decisive strike will teach the upstart colony a permanent lesson. On August 24, British forces under Major General Robert Ross and Rear Admiral George Cockburn rout American militia at Bladensburg. By nightfall, they march into Washington, D.C. Flames consume the Capitol and the presidential mansion. First Lady Dolly Madison barely escapes, clutching the iconic portrait of George Washington. They thought the job was done. A quick punishment, then withdrawal. But something unexpected happened the very next day. A violent storm, some accounts describe it as a possible tornado, swept in, helping extinguish the fires and forcing the British out after just 26 hours. A gunpowder accident killed around 30 of their own men. The burning of Washington became a symbol not of British dominance, but of American resilience. What followed changed everything. The failed assault on Baltimore inspired Francis Scott Key to write the Star-Spangled Banner. At New Orleans in January 1815, Andrew Jackson crushed a British attack, even though the peace treaty had already been signed in Ghent on December 24, 1814. Britain gained 0 territory. The young United States emerged with strengthened sovereignty and a surging national identity. The empire that torched the capital never struck American soil the same way again. Yet the pattern refused to die. Jump forward to 1846. Mexican cavalry crosses the Rio Grande and ambushes a U.S. patrol in disputed territory, the Thornton Affair. 11 Americans die. President Polk seizes the moment and declares war. When the smoke clears in 1848, Mexico signs the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. It cedes over 500,000 square miles, territory that becomes California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming. A nation that struck first lost vast lands and never regained its former geopolitical weight. By World War I, the attacks turned invisible but no less dangerous. Imperial Germany, desperate to stop American munitions flowing to the Allies, unleashes a secret sabotage campaign on U.S. soil. On July 30, 1916, just after 2 a.m., Black Tom Island in New Jersey erupts. 2 million pounds of munitions detonate with the force of a 5.0 plus earthquake. The blast shatters windows across Manhattan and Brooklyn, damages the Statue of Liberty's torch so badly it stays closed for decades, and is felt nearly 100 miles away. At least 7 people die, hundreds more are injured. Over 40 similar strikes hit munitions plants. Germany hoped to cripple supply lines quietly. Instead, the campaign helped push America into the war. Germany loses World War I. The Kaiser abdicates. Years later, a claims commission holds Germany responsible and orders $50 million in reparations, finally paid by West Germany in 1979. The Espionage Act of 1917, still foundational to U.S. security, is born from these very operations. But even while that war raged, another surprise came from the South. On March 9, 1916, at 4 a.m., Pancho Villa leads roughly 485 fighters across the border and raids Columbus, New Mexico in broad daylight. 18 Americans, civilians and soldiers, are killed. Buildings burn. Historians still debate his exact motives, provoking U.S. intervention to undermine rival Carranza, or settling a grudge over arms. Whatever the trigger, the response is swift and deep. President Wilson sends General John J. Black Jack Pershing with 6,600 troops on a punitive expedition hundreds of miles into Mexico. Villa is never captured, but his forces suffer heavy losses, estimates of 90 to 170 dead from the raid and pursuit alone. Villa himself is assassinated in 1923. The raid strains U.S.-Mexico relations for decades, yet it also tests new tactics, vehicles, and aircraft that later prove vital in Europe. Then comes the strike that still echoes today. December 7, 1941. Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. 353 Japanese aircraft from 6 carriers descend without warning. In under 2 hours, 2,403 Americans are killed. Much of the Pacific Fleet lies damaged or sunk. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, who had studied in America, knew the risk better than most. Japan calculated it could run wild for about 18 months before U.S. industry overwhelmed them. But they missed a critical factor. The 3 U.S. aircraft carriers were at sea that day, untouched. The fuel tanks, dry docks, and submarine base survived too. 6 months later, at Midway, the United States sinks 4 Japanese fleet carriers in one battle. Japan never regains naval parity. Smaller strikes follow on the mainland. A submarine shells Fort Stevens, Oregon. Pilot Nobu Fujita drops incendiary bombs on Oregon forests from a seaplane, and Japan launches over 9,300 Fugo balloon bombs across the Pacific. About 300 reach North America. On May 5, 1945, near Bly, Oregon, one explodes during a family picnic, killing 6 civilians, a pregnant woman and 5 children. The only enemy-caused civilian deaths on the continental U.S. during World War II. None of it changes the outcome. In August 1945, after atomic bombings and Soviet entry into the war, Japan surrenders unconditionally. Its empire collapses. The militarist government is dismantled. Under U.S. occupation until 1952, Japan adopts a constitution that renounces war. The power that struck first emerges forever transformed, a peaceful, demilitarized economic powerhouse instead of an empire. Germany tries again in World War II. U-boats ravage shipping off the East Coast in Operation Drumbeat. Saboteurs from Operation Pastorius land on Long Island and Florida beaches. All 8 are caught within 2 weeks, 6 are executed. By May 1945, Germany surrenders unconditionally. The regime that sent men onto American shores no longer exists. The deadliest blow lands on September 11, 2001. Al-Qaeda, protected by the Taliban in Afghanistan, hijacks 4 airliners. 2 destroy the World Trade Center towers. 1 hits the Pentagon. The 4th crashes in Pennsylvania after passengers revolt. Nearly 3,000 people from 93 nations die. The United States launches the War on Terror. The Taliban regime falls within months. Al-Qaeda's leadership is hunted down for years. Osama bin Laden is killed by Navy SEALs in 2011. The network behind the worst foreign attack on American soil is left severely crippled. Across these 8 attacks spanning more than 180 years, the same hidden factors keep surfacing. Each attacking power misjudged America's ability to mobilize vast industrial might and its determination to respond with overwhelming force. Britain gained nothing lasting from burning Washington. Mexico lost enormous territory. Imperial Germany collapsed into chaos. Villa's movement was shattered. Japan's empire vanished. Al-Qaeda's global threat was dismantled. In every case, the initial blow was dwarfed by what came next. What they didn't realize was that striking the United States on its own soil consistently triggered consequences far beyond any short-term gain. In hindsight, this isn't simply a tale of military victories or defeats. It reveals how dangerous it can be to underestimate both resolve and resources, turning even the boldest strike into a turning point that reshapes nations for generations. Today, that same dynamic still shapes global strategy. The principle of deterrence through credible, overwhelming response remains a quiet but powerful lesson written into history each time an adversary tested American soil. And what could be the next thing that will happen? Is always the same. Which nation do you think paid the heaviest price? Drop your answer in the comments below. If you learned something new, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story.